All right. Welcome back to Chapter 1 and Beyond. I'm your host, Christina, and today we're cracking open the spine of time because we're talking about classics today. You know, the books we were forced to read, the ones we avoided, the ones that surprised us in the best way, the ones I personally, dreaded having to read as a kid. Whether you love them or loathe them in school, today we're giving these literary legends another look, and lately I've been very intrigued to challenge myself to revisit many of them. Before I dive in, I just want to shout out to all the listeners that have repeatedly been coming back to my podcast. I'm 5 episodes in now because today is episode 5, and I am beyond amazed with how many that are tuning into this podcast. I really didn't realize I could distribute to Spotify and all these other platforms other than YouTube. So this is really fun and exciting. And hey, I'm getting better with editing. I'm getting better with planning my episodes out. I'm getting better with even recording. So I'm not blasting in your ear. I promise I will be going back eventually to edit and fix the audio on those other episodes because I do realize my face was definitely way too close to the microphone. So apologies for that awkwardness. But I'm absolutely having fun with this little project of mine. I know many on YouTube ask for liking and subscribing, etc. But honestly, I want to be transparent with you all. I am not here to drive subscribers. Believe it or not, I am here to share what I can about books, get all of my thoughts out on in video audio form, and just really start connecting with like-minded individuals within this space through my Discord channel. That would be awesome to grow. If there ever was a point where this took off, I personally feel that this is just an outlet for me, and I'm having a good time with it. This is really helping with satisfying my creative side of my brain, and I appreciate everyone that has been supporting this. I definitely am still learning and, overall enjoying the process, and I hope you are too. I know many on Book Talk and BookTube grow their channels by monetizing, but I personally get annoyed with that and feel it should be free of that content, because with the society and world that we live in right now, it's constantly being thrown in our faces, and it's just nice to have like one place that you can like escape to and have where you don't have to worry about it. So I personally feel at this time I'm going to pledge not to have that kind of content. That's just me. But you know, if that is your thing, I get it, but it is not my thing. I don't know about all of you. I can't be alone in feeling like this, where, there's got to be an outlet somewhere to escape from. So, whether it's your books or whether it's this podcast or whether it's, other YouTube channels that I have not found yet within the BookTube community. But yeah, that's just my take. I don't know about all of you, but I may be the oddball, or I may not be alone in all this. But anyways, let's dive into my first segment of this episode. Today's episode, we're like I said, we're gonna be talking about the classics that intimidated me. We're gonna be revisiting the ones that shaped who I am and shook me, and ones that I avoided like the plague, and now have been itching to get on my TBR list. So, so this first segment, let's talk about the classics that intimidated me. So when I think about classics, when I hear the word classic, to me it's more well-known stories, authors, and timeless books that can be read by future generations that stick with you. I think like Lord of the Rings is a classic? Absolutely. Do I think William Shakespeare and Charles Dickens, their stories and plays, heck yeah, and honestly, many of the fantasy series that I've been diving into, like, Harry Potter. Like, I'm absolutely obsessed with Harry Potter, in the Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, heck, even like, a Game of Thrones and the Hunger Games. I truly feel that those could really be considered modern day classics, because, like, we got these repeated, readers that keep coming back and they want more, and that, like, I love how these authors continue to add to the story. Like, heck, the Hunger Games, we just got Haymitch's story, from Sunrise on the Reaping, and I mean, yeah, it tore my heartstrings, like, reading his story, but it was just so nice to be able to, like, fill in the gaps and understand, like, from these original trilogies and everything, like, more of that landscape and more of that character. And I just really appreciate the authors for continuing to broaden that. I mean, even Stephen King and Brandon Sanderson, I would say they're gonna end up on that list of modern day classics too. But I know when I was growing up, it was ingrained in our brains that Oscar Wilde, Charles Dickens, Emily Bronte, Jane Austen, Daphne du Maurier, Jules Verne, Hans Christian Andersen, I believe, whoever, like, whoever was, like, kind of in that, like, 1800s genre, if you will. Those were considered like powerhouses for classics. And, like, I mean, I kind of look at it now as, this is there's like many, many more beyond just an 1800s that should be considered classics. Like George Orwell, and like, absolutely would be defined as a classic author. And then, like, even Louisa May Alcott, that does the Little Women series, that too, like, was forever ingrained in my brain as classics. But I mean, honestly, there were many titles that I avoided, not because they were boring, not because they were old or dense. Like, I personally, like, when I first started really diving into reading in middle school and high school, like, really consistently read all the time, I did tend to avoid really skinny books, which funny story, now I avoid really thick books now. So I did avoid, like, authors like Jane Austen and Emily Bronte, and like I said, Louisa May Alcott when I was younger. But it wasn't because they were old or it was intimidating. It wasn't in my interest, I guess. It wasn't something that I thought at the time was relatable to me. But now as an adult, these authors and their titles have been poking me in the back, saying, "Hey, you gonna come visit?" So, I mean, I would say, though, specific classic books that did intimidate me, I would be intimidated by books that were less than 200 pages, only because of the fact, and maybe I'm an oddball here, but I never really understood how a book could be good or interesting with so little description. And I thought, oh, well, if it's this short, it's just, there's just no time for context and description and storytelling in that aspect. And I was also afraid, if I read something from the adult section, no matter if it was, like, in the classics, or if it was, like, like, I don't know, Dan Brown, mystery books, or Stephen King, is another one. I always thought my parents would start hollering at me, but which, honestly, now I now see how far my anxiety has rolled back, and by that mentioning, oof, I'm gonna have to talk to my therapist. So, um, but I mean, like, like, keeping on this topic, like, like, thinking about, like, was I afraid that I wasn't going to get into it, love it, or still DNF it? I mean, a lot of the classics, I knew I would be required or forced to read them in school, so I didn't want to touch them outside, like, like, during summer break and things like that. I wanted something that gave me an escape and interesting, and many of those titles were, like, fantasy books, like Chronicles of, um uh Lion Witch in the Wardrobe, like Chronicles of Narnia. I mean that one sticks with me till this day. Lots of fantasy, lots of sci-fi. I was very much into that. I was very much into like Boxcar Children and even I mean that's my young years, but I mean like Beverly Cleary. I was really into those books with Ralph the Mouse and the Motorcycle and Ramona and Beezus and things like that. So I mean honestly though, I mean if I wasn't playing video games or I wasn't indulging in something with fantasy or sci-fi or something in the fiction realm that interested me at the time, I realized that classics aren't meant to be conquered like a mountain. They're really living conversations, and sometimes you just need the right time or mood to meet them. There really is no timeline on when they should be tackled, and I feel confident that, you know, even though I never read them as a teenager or a middle schooler or child, you know, I still feel like I still have that opportunity to revisit them. And, you know, some titles do pop out more than others. But yeah, let's dive into like the books that I was forced to read in high school. Yeah, there were quite a few of them. You know, so like um let's see. What you know, what titles come to mind that I was assigned to in school in that I couldn't really connect with? I mean, generally speaking, when I am required or assigned something, it's hard for me to draw a connection and get into the book that way. Many of the books that I was like kind of required to read in high school, I personally, I personally just didn't care. So, we were constantly writing essays and doing quizzes and doing tests. Like some of the titles that were on that list was like The Metamorphosis, To Kill a Mockingbird, The Great Gatsby, All Quiet on the Western Front, 1984, Picture of Dorian Gray, Of Mice and Men, the uh the Outsiders. I mean, there's like so many, and I mean, many can probably relate to that list because like within the 2000s, that was the popular list of books that was required. Now, would I say that the classroom setting ruined the experience of certain books? No, I don't. I wouldn't say that. I mean, yeah, we were forced to, like, we were required to read them, and I don't agree, like, that, you know, we had to read them, but I understand why they put them in the curriculum. I mean, as an adult now, like, you know, I thoroughly enjoyed many of them, like 1984. I really enjoyed that book. And actually, I went on to reading Aldous Huxley's A Brave New World, and I read George Orwell's Animal Farm. I also read the original inspiration for 1984. I cannot pronounce this author's name to save my life, but it was called We, W-E. Look it up. Honestly, the best dystopian I probably have read, like even like on top of 1984. And I honestly see how it kind of relates and influenced 1984 for George Orwell. I'm gonna be honest, like even like The Handmaid's Tale, that one gave me freaking nightmares. But I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, like there, like, you know, you get like all of these different titles, like The Scarlet Letter and The Giver and, you know, The Raven, like by Edgar Allan Poe, and, you know, like you kind of are just like in this groove of, okay, well, I just need to get this done because it's an assignment, it's required for graduation, you know. I'm glad that the classroom setting really pushed me outside of that comfort zone. Would going back, like, would appreciate it? Probably still not, just because like I was very stubborn when I was younger. So so yeah, I mean, like honestly, I don't think like the classroom had any like you know, like basis for ruining the experience of these books. Now, would I say that these books written by authors I appreciated later on in life? Absolutely. Like I said, George Orwell influenced, like inspired me to like look at these other dystopian books. And honestly, I think that's probably why I love reading dystopian books, even if it's not considered a classic. Like 1984 alone will forever ingrained in my brain, and like I said, We was another title that was a classic dystopian, and Harper Lee, Charles Dickens, and F. Scott Fitzgerald are like authors I continuously keep revisiting and wanting to read more of their works because I just appreciate the way that they shared their stories, and even now they're just timeless rereads for me. Just because like a lot of the material like Charles Dickens wrote, like it's just so relatable, and it's scary on how like history repeats itself, but I'm going to be quite honest, like like it's nice to have something relatable now as an adult. Maybe I didn't relate to it as a child or a kid or a teenager, but these authors really help shape like how I kind of like absorb information and stories now. Like it's just more in my niche of like interest, if you will. But I mean, looking back, like trying to understand what my teacher was trying to show me, like I sort of get it. I mean, like I said, I was very stubborn, and looking back I do kind of see what they were trying to show, but I do agree that with the approach, not, that it maybe was like too forceful, but they were just doing their jobs. Absolutely. I mean, writing endless essays and doing quizzes only teaches how to get better at hitting those requirements and memorizing material. But, you don't fully get to appreciate something unless you are really wanting to accept and take in and comprehend the message from those stories. And I'm a firm believer, like even with like, mental health, like I feel that unless that person has a willingness to improve and grow and get better, like no one can force that person to do that. So not like most of these titles and stuff, they're not for everybody, and not everyone's going to have the same interest, but that's what makes us all unique. So like I mentioned earlier, I did reread 1984 by George Orwell, and I did enjoy that book, but I think I enjoyed it even more as an adult than I did as a teenager. I understood a lot more of like how a government can kind of control its people by fear mongering, and like it's scary, but and it's like it really is like a perspective that we should be shown. But like I just really love eating up these classic dystopians just because like you get like a totally different perspective from each one. Like we was I think through a female perspective, and then 1984 obviously was through a male perspective, but I've been learning that they actually did a kind of like a rewrite with Julia from 1984. I guess apparently there's another book out there called Julia, and it's like kind of like a retelling of 1984. I'm very intrigued, and I've been trying to find it. I mean, even like Handmaid's Tale, like I said, not realizing like the amount of depth, that a group of people can have influence on, that really just stuck with me and really has kind of opened my eyes to other perspectives and such. So, as an adult, I guess I can consider myself an old lady now. so, so yeah, I mean, when it comes to like, like what I was forced to read, would I say that I would do it all over again? Probably not, but some of these classics I do want to revisit. Some of these classics that have been calling to me are like Herman Melville's Moby Dick, Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, Jules Verne books, Around the World in 80 Days, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Jane Austen again, Pride and Prejudice, Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, Notes from the Underground, Bleak House. I mean, like a lot of these titles, like I just personally just tried to avoid as much as humanly possible, but they have been like really revisiting where I'm at, and I don't know. It's been forever like rejogging, and I think like honestly I really want to try and challenge myself from now till 2027 to see how many of these classics I can read through. There's so many popular lists out there. It's very intriguing to me to try and challenge myself to read something out of my comfort zone now. So, I mean, I would definitely say I would really love the opportunity to be able to read those. Let's talk about some classics that I want to revisit. So, the classics that have been really calling to me lately, and I really think this is going to be a fun segment just because I would say many of the classics that are calling me right now specifically are actually sitting on my shelf. so so it works out great. So I would definitely say Moby Dick by Herman Melville, Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, Jules Verne's Around the World in 80 Days, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, H.G. Wells. There's like two of them by H.G. Wells. The Time Machine, and I believe War of Worlds. I thought that was pretty cool. I think that's a sci-fi actually. And then let's see, A Tale of Two Cities, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, Wuthering Heights, Bleak House, Notes from the Underground, Walden. I think I have like a combined like edition where it has both of those in it. So that'll be fun tackling two books in one. Let's see what else. Got Gulliver's Travels, Jungle Book, Treasure Island, Paperwick, Hunchback of Notre Dame. I mean, like honestly, I'm like looking at all the classics that I have, and there's a good number of them. I really feel like honestly, if I really challenge myself, I could really tackle through this. So maybe that'll be a fun little bonus series that I do with this, and see how many of these I can tackle. So I don't know. I have way too many freaking lists. I swear, like it's just nonstop list after list after list, and I have piles of books everywhere. So it probably looks like a mad woman lives here, but it is what it is. Oh, I almost dropped my freaking microphone. So okay, yeah. So continuing with this whole revisiting classics. I would say that the next topic I want to like talk about is like, are there stories that I misunderstood as a teen that you now visit as an adult and you get a totally different message from them? Absolutely. I didn't really comprehend material very well as a kid and as a teen. I have a known condition, learning disability, and attention deficit disorder. So it was really hard for me to, like I learned things on a slower timeline, if you will, is how I can easily put it. But now I have to say, like, as an adult, I'm more mature, more seasoned, more consistently grabbing attention to these different themes and comprehending like the book itself. I would say I found that Great Gatsby in 1984. Like, I definitely missed that whole like message that the story was trying to portray as a teen compared to an adult. And I can really I find it really intriguing, like as an adult now, like really diving back in, because like I personally feel like I can relate more to these stories and it just interests me a lot more. And maybe that's because my taste in like reading has evolved, because I know a lot of the titles I used to like visit, like I said, were like children's stories, young adult. I didn't dare go into the adult section just because like, I thought I would get in trouble, or I was worried about the content that was in adult books, and I didn't think I was ready for that. But I mean, I even would say that, avoiding horror books and thriller books were something that I avoided like the plague. So seeing like infamous titles, I've been super intrigued to revisit them, create another list, and hopefully dive into them. I know like a lot of like these titles and many more titles that I've been finding on these popular lists of classics to read before you die type. I know that sounds morbid, but some of the lists were labeled like that. And I mean, I can easily get these titles on ebook through Libby app or through the library. Even like the secondhand shops like Half Price Books, Thrift Books, and even Book Outlet has like these collector's editions of the classics too, which I personally have been trying to keep away from that section because the temptation at times can be too overwhelming. So, but honestly, like anytime like I reread a book, like I've reread the Harry Potter series probably more than a dozen times. And actually the first time that I read that series was when I was much older. I've read like book 1 when I was a kid, but I never got through the whole series, and like absorbing, that experience as an adult was just like chef's kiss. So, I mean, what I usually hope for on gaining from rereading with the more life experiences that I personally would love to get a better understanding and perspective of the influences of these stories during the period of time. I know that history likes to repeat itself. It's been over and over and over again. But I mean, being able to catch a glimpse of what life was like in that society and time period, and then seeing their imagination kind of evolve this story during that time period is really cool for me. I know many will read classics just because, like, it's a classic, but personally for me, like my approach is I really would love to see other perspectives and other timelines. And I think maybe that's probably why like the time travel books like in sci-fi, um honestly I love like the historical fiction now, because I get a glimpse into like 1800s, like The Exiles by Christina Baker Klein. I just finished that one recently, and that was like 1800s, 1843, 1841. But honestly, like just looking at a lot of these titles, like being able to catch a glimpse of like those previous time periods, it's really cool for me. It's fascinating. Will I plan to approach them, via audiobook, physical read, buddy read? I don't know. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I'm probably definitely not going to approach it via audiobook form, because I did try with Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, and I just couldn't handle the narrators. They're just so monotone, and like I got too relaxed, and I just started to fall asleep, and it was just next to impossible. I'm gonna say like a lot of the books that I do indulge in, I do take in via audiobook form, but it really depends. Like thriller books and mystery books, I could totally devour within an audiobook form. Now, like when it comes to certain fantasy books, I need to kind of be reading along to absorb and comprehend. It's a thing that I have, and then you know, sci-fi books and such like that, I could like absorb it either way via audiobook or via physical read. But I mean, I'm gonna say like I really did enjoy like the classics of like The Great Gatsby, um, Edgar Allan Poe books, poems. Sorry, not books, poems. I did recently like indulge in those via audio form, and it did enhance the experience. But I will say that a lot of these titles, like the narrators are just really monotone, and I really can't get into them. So, I mean, I love the Roaring Twenties era in a good pirate hero story, which is probably why, I got into The Great Gatsby and Peter Pan. But, it's fine. I mean, honestly, it's fine. So, I mean, as long as I'm absorbing it and I'm enjoying the experience, like that's all that matters. So, okay, so for this final segment of this episode, and I know I've been going on quite a bit. I think this episode's probably going to be the longest episode so far to hit my podcast. So let's talk about what classics taught me about empathy, history, or perspective. Oh gosh, this is actually a great talking point. Just because like there were so many books that do help, like the Midnight Library by Matt Haig. That one, I know I repeatedly keep bringing that one up, but it really helped like put perspective into my life. And I love a book that does that. I love a book that's able to really draw me in and like make that kind of impact. And I would say like A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens really taught me about societal statuses and seeing from multiple perspectives. Les Mis, I saw that on Cleveland's Playhouse Square, and oh my gosh, obsessed. Like it's so nice, like being able to like kind of see like the different perspectives. And honestly, I could say like even 1984 too. Like just seeing how terrifying fear and control over people can influence how society has to act and how they have to be controlled, and all these dangerous people rising to power. Like oh gosh, like that really opened up my eyes too. Like even reading the Diary of Anne Frank too, like just seeing like what those poor people had to go through during that period, and hiding in an annex. Like I can't even begin to imagine. But I mean, in the last title that I would say like that really taught me empathy and or a perspective is The Lord of the Flies. What I did listen to on audiobook made me really hate bullying and assault and just being nasty towards people for no reason. Like that just made me hate it more. So, so I mean, like I didn't read through all of Lord of the Flies because the narrator for that audiobook just like once again was putting me asleep, too monotone. Like I just have found that there's really no easy way to read a classic when you are doing an audiobook form. Just because like you have like older generations reading it, and like it's gotta be, for me to be drawn into an audiobook, it's about the experience and how that voice person, actor, however you want to call it, they personally like portray that. So I mean, if you're not drawing me in and I'm like, this is the like things like that, I just can't get myself to stay focused. But I will say too, like another the next point that I want to like talk about is like, do I appreciate the beauty of the writing or the timelessness of the oh yeah, definitely. Though some of the language is really hard for me to understand and explore, it's beautiful being able to see, like I said, that time period and like influences from that time period, or seeing that imagination like kind of evolve into the story that it became, and I would definitely say that my taste or understanding has matured since first reading. And I know I've repeatedly said this, but revisiting a lot of these books and like going back through and rereading has really evolved my taste in books. Like, I was not privy to reading horror books and adult books, and now, I'm very interested in horror books, and I am interested in classics, and I am interested in historical fiction. I mean, I definitely have harnessing my old lady status. Just kidding. I would definitely say, that it has definitely evolved my tastes and interests in books. But that's not a bad thing. But a lot of people, like I remember a lot of teachers mentioning like how classic books matter. And, looking back on that, discussion and really thinking about it now in my current time of life, I would definitely say they do still matter. Like, if I were to go back and have a conversation with my teacher about this, like, I would definitely say something completely different than what I responded originally. Because originally I didn't really see the value and the lessons that you could learn from these classic books and stories. But I'm gonna be honest. Like, I feel that they're important, and I feel that, when the time is right for each individual and they want to give it a go, I really think like some of these titles that I mentioned in this episode would be a great starter pack. Like, maybe I could put together a bonus episode of, like, if you were interested in classics, these are the titles I would recommend. If you're interested in this or that, I could totally do that. But I mean, honestly, I don't think classics are meant to be like this perfect picture. I really think that classics just give you a glimpse of what it was like, and giving you that timeless story to, pass on if it really made an impact for you. So but yeah, I mean, I'd be curious, what classics intimidated you the most, and which one surprised you with how much you loved it? I mean, I would love to hear from you guys. Definitely share your thoughts on my Discord channel. The link will be provided below. And then on the next episode on Chapter 1 and Beyond, get ready for a heart pounding ride through the world of thrillers and mystery thrillers. Woohoo! I'm diving into books that kept me up way too late. There was quite a few of them. The twists I didn't see coming, and the ones that are completely messed with my head in the best way possible. Whether you're into psychological tension, dark secrets, or fast-paced whodunits, this episode will definitely be for you. So don't miss it, because sometimes the most dangerous stories are the ones you can't put down. But until next time, keep reading, keep wondering, and I'll see you in the next chapter.